So here we have the Coles not inviting Emma to dinner. They were inviting everybody else, but they didn't invite Emma and they didn't invite her father. And Emma was upset about this because she was looking forward to declining the invitation, which is one of these layers of reindeer games that just bother the heck out of me. I'm not a fan of the I want to be invited just so I can refuse. I mean, it's like that's just silliness. Anyways, she wanted to be invited so she could refuse, and then she was invited, and then decided that because she was going to refuse or that she was invited specially, that she was actually going to go. Part of this may be that Mr. Frank Churchill was going, and Mr. Frank Churchill asked if there was going to be dancing. And so Emma thought, hey, if he goes and he convinces people to have dancing, then she could dance with him and get closer, and maybe their relationship could progress to more than just comfortable afternoon walks. Now, Frank went to London to get his hair cut. That's 16 miles away, 32-mile round trip. And that's kind of excessive. I mean, even today's standard, well, I guess today's standards, going 16 miles to get your hair cut, going across town to get your hair cut at just the right place is not entirely unreasonable, but back then that was insane. And his father called him a coxcomb. Now, you have a rooster. If you imagine a rooster, the way you tell the difference between a rooster and a hen typically is that a rooster has this bright red bit of flesh that sticks up from the top of its head. That kind of looks like a comb with all of these different fingers. And it's referred to as the comb or the coxcomb. And it's big and it's flashy and it's showy. And it's how roosters signal their attractiveness to hens. So hens look for the roosters with the biggest, flashiest, reddest bit of flesh sticking up on top of the head. The biggest, brightest, flashiest coxcomb. And so calling a person a coxcomb means that there's somebody who struts and preens and is overly obsessed with their appearance. So, and his father called him that. So, yeah, it's like, well, yeah, he kind of is going 16 miles just to get his haircut. Though, of course, the haircut could be an excuse. It's like he needs to go into town and do banking or, you know, some other business in London. And it's like, oh, yes, I run off to get my hair cut. Because, that's the sort of foppish thing that was expected of him. Now, Mr. Knightley was like, yeah, I totally called that one. I totally called that one. And Emma was like, she wanted to just rail at him. And he's just like, no, no, no. And she realized, well, he was just sort of adjusting his thoughts. And so he wasn't trying to pick a fight. And a lot of people do that. They mentally adjust their thoughts. And there are some people who just assume they're trying to pick a fight. It's like, no, I'm just trying to get this all sorted out in my head. Anyway, so she is going to go to the party. And she's going to go to the party. Now, as I said, the Coles are new money. And Emma and her family are old money. And I've talked about this before, how money made from the trades or anything other than just having money to make money was looked down on. And there was a book written 100 years ago, written exactly 100 years ago, which is a classic of American literature called The Great Gatsby. And Gatsby is all new money. He is a Prohibition era bootlegger. He was a literal nobody. He was like, he worked, I can't remember what he did, but he was like the child of the help. And it's like his parents were a maid and a groundskeeper or something like that. I mean, and he became a bootlegger and just came back with money, just huge, stinking piles of money. And what he did with his money was he threw parties because he bought a big house right across the sound from the woman he loved, Daisy. He loved Daisy ever since he was a little kid, and she was a little kid, and they didn't know that they weren't supposed to love each other. Anyway, he was in love with Daisy, and he threw all of these lavish parties that could be seen all the way across the sound. So, he has these huge parties, and, the music goes out over the water, the lights, the dancing, the fireworks. He spent all of this money trying to get Daisy. The thing is that Daisy was old money. And these big expensive parties are like show offish, and it's not the type of thing that you do if you have money. This is the type of thing that pretenders who have money do. People who just got their money and don't know what to do with it. And so the Great Gatsby goes on about that. And this is something that really struck me because here you have the Coles trying to get respectability by throwing parties and getting people over, much the same way that Gatsby did. And it could very well be that F. Scott or that Fitzgerald, it was F. Scott Fitzgerald, right? Yep. F. Scott Fitzgerald had read Emma. He probably did. I mean, Emma's one of the great English novels, and it'd been around for 100 years at his time. So it could be that he had read Emma as like, I like this idea of the social climbers. And that's a lot of what Gatsby's themes, most of Fitzgerald's works actually were about this sort of class distinction and how that class distinction finally in the 1920s was breaking down. But anyway, so Gatsby might be a later book. There's some adult themes in there that are not. There are some adult themes in there. Anyway, but here we have Emma, and she is off to the party, and she made her dad promise not to wait up for her because he would just be hemming and stewing, and he'll spend the next 3 days. It's like, oh, I am so sick. Oh, why did you have to stay out? I'm so sick because I stayed up and got cold. And I was like, go to bed. He's like, okay. But you got to make sure that your maid waits up for you. Okay. Got to make sure that the butler keeps the house safe like he always does. Okay. And so Emma's going to be going to the party, and that's probably going to be the next chapter. We'll see.